Well, hello and welcome to my statutory. If you haven't been here before, my name is Jane and I am a textile artist living in the middle of Scotland. I run a business called Snapdragon Life and a creativity online club called the Studio Club. And every week I come on here and I talk about creativity, the natural world, maybe some history, and also about living in a slightly different way, particularly as a middle-aged woman, because there are not enough middle-aged women on YouTube. And this is going to be one of those weeks where I talk about that. How do you live as a middle-aged woman? What are the differences? How can you live your best life? And I want to talk about this because something slightly bizarre happened just before I went on holiday there. I got an email from a PR company. Now, motorbike. That in itself is not unusual. I am what is known as a micro-influencer, which just basically means I have social media channels, but not very many followers. So I am this kind of like category of micro-influencers. And so I will get emails saying, you know, I'm working with a client and they're wanting to show a diverse range of body shapes for our new leggings or bikinis or whatever it is. Would you like to be involved? But this one was slightly different. This one started working with an exciting new client on a new project, or the client on an exciting new project. And what we would like to know is, are you a hag? And I thought, oh, right, okay. But it made me very, very disturbed. Now, I messaged a friend about it. I sent her a copy of the email and she just replied in her WhatsApp, how rude. But actually, that's not what I meant. I meant this, it sounds very kind of like toxic consumerism to me, that here we have a group of women of whom they obviously have identified me, who stopped wearing push-up bras, who stopped dyeing their hair, who threw away the high heels and moved into more comfortable shoes, and thought, oh, right, there's a whole load of stuff that we're not able to sell to that person now. Let's bring out a range that is hashtag, and this was at the bottom of the thing, hashtag living the good hag life. Now, it kind of made me a little bit about it. And I said, no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. I am not there. And what I would say is, if you do fancy, you know, a t-shirt with hag or crone and reclaiming that whole thing, then Susie at the Twisted Tea does a brilliant range and has been doing it for ages. And I really hope that this new client of the PR company is not intending to rip her off. So I will put the link below and go and check her out. So I did what the writer, Caitlin Moran, says you should always do when something doesn't feel quite right. That you should go and you should ask yourself, are men bothered about this? Are they spending their time thinking about this? So that's what I did. I looked around all my friends and looked at our family, men, and no, none of them are thinking, oh, what archetype can I move into middle years with? They're just getting on with it. I'm not saying that they're all finding middle age or old age easy. I mean, there are lots and lots of changes, but they're not looking for the equivalent hashtag of living the good hag life. And of course, that's not surprising because they have lots of role models. Right through history and writing and films and everything, you have really good male role models. Women, less so. And I would say that up until a couple of years ago, I thought that that was because women didn't get a chance to do things. When I studied art history back in sort of like the late 80s, there really were no women artists that were studied. And I questioned it, but I accepted the answer that because the women hadn't had access to the schools and weren't encouraged, and it wasn't a nice thing for a lady to do, that there were no artists. Now, I realise that is complete bullshit. It wasn't that there weren't artists. It wasn't that they weren't brilliant artists. It was just somehow, particularly in the last 200 years, we have agreed to kind of forget them, hide things, it is like a mass forgetting. So, you know, there were people there, but they're just not mentioned. I first became aware of this when I read Anna Funder's book, which is a biography of Eileen O'Shaughnessy, who was married to Eric Blair, better known as George Orwell. And it's an amazing woman who did amazing things and who has been cut out of biographies of George Orwell because there is this idea of, you know, the strong solo male hero. And, you know, even in photographs, when she appears, she often isn't actually even name-checked. But what struck me most was that Anna Funder said that when she was reading biographies of George Orwell, she would come to a bit which she learned to sense that there was a gap. Something just not there, something that had been missed out by these biographers. And every single time she checked it out, it turned out that there was a woman there. And I don't mean in the romantic sense. I mean that there was a woman editor or publisher or funder, a woman who had power, really, to help George Orwell to spot his talent and move him on. But all of these women had been kind of just written out, but in a kind of almost conspiracy of covering up that women did things. And then I came across this, Phillippa Gregory's just masterwork called Normal Woman, which is, I actually listened to it first and have bought a hard copy to make notes, but 900 years of women in English and then British history. And reading through this, it's just jaw-dropping how many amazing role models. They're all in there. They needed so much more work because this is 900. Although it's a chunky book, that's 900 years of them. And, you know, they'll get a sentence and they just need to be taken and have people run with them. And I have recommended this to so many friends over the past year. And I get these messages just saying, I am so pissed off. How did we not learn any of this at school? And this is why I think we've come to this point where capitalism, this sort of like toxic, find something for women to spend their money on kind of consumerism, is coming up with hashtag living your best hag life and asking whether micro-influencers like me would like to be involved. So I went on holiday. I went on holiday to the island of Hvar, which we've been going to for a number of years. Despite having this kind of party reputation, which I think was like Prince Harry when he was 26 at nightclubs, in September, it's really not busy, and the weather is, you know, a really nice temperature. And we go and we stay in this porta cabin on a beach. My idea of a good holiday is being able to swim and lie reading it in the sun. And I like to do both, if possible, nude. So I like to have some privacy and access to some water straight from my house. And this is what we do. And the beach where we are, it's not like a sandy beach. They don't really do them in Croatia much. But it is this beach of limestone boulders, and they are white, and they look like hip bones and skulls, and there are eye sockets, and it's just the most amazing landscape. And it occurred to me that if I was going to explore in my head this idea of the hag and why we are sort of like latching onto it, it would be a good place to do that reading. It looks like a beach that would be put together by Baba Yaga or a Georgia O'Keeffe. You know, it is stark and ghoulish, and does look pretty much as though there are bodies buried there. So I decided that I would reread Sharon Blake's Hagitude, because I think that in some ways it has been the success of that book that has sparked this Living Your Good Hag Life hashtag. And it is a really good book, but its title, which is Hagitude, and then it's sort of like this reimagining the second half of life kind of thing, is in some ways misleading. It is Sharon Blakey is somebody who is a fairy tale and folklorist, psychotherapist, psychoanalyst, very drawn to Jungian ways of thinking. So she's all about dreams and imagery and collective consciousness. And this book was written during a period of really difficult time for her. It's, you know, she had sort of like a failed small holding, which she had to leave even though she was very tied to the place. There was grief over livestock, a wobble in her marriage, and she was suddenly ill and unable to do the things that she had expected to do. So she was pretty much housebound for a period of time. And that is, you know, pure hag crone energy. It is, you know, loss and grief and things pared back to the bone and having to start again. But hopefully, although we all have times in our life where that fits, and certainly I have had times in my life where I have felt very, you know, in this burn it all down, pare it back to the bone, really stand in the flames kind of energy. I'm 55. If we take away childhood, I have pretty much, I hope, the same level of years to go. I am just a little bit past halfway through my adult years. And I certainly do not want all of that time to be lived with that really hard proclaiming myself as a crone or a hag energy. The energy that I feel at the moment is really nurturing and green and creative. I have found that perimenopause, for me, has been a really creative time. It's been a very connecting to nature time. It's been seeing the beauty in this astonishing world kind of time. And when you actually read Sharon Blakey's book, you see that it's not actually really about hags or crones in that way. They have a chapter. They have a place in the telling of the story. But what she's doing is she's laying out all of the sort of folkloric and fairy tale things, the things that have their origins back in times that we have forgotten, and where we can kind of almost collectively remember these roles that women have. So, you know, there are fairy godmothers, and there are the fates who weave. There are creatrixes. There are all kinds of things that are not Baba Yaga and the Kailach. So I think it's a really interesting book, and I would recommend it. And like all of these other ones, I will put the links underneath here. The thing that I was drawn to, if I'm going to make myself an archetype, if I'm going to pick one of her options for the second half of life, there is a person called the hen wife. Now, the hen wife seems to appear in only 4 or 5 fairy tales, but she is the person who is kind of in society. She's probably got a cottage near the village, maybe on the edge of a wood, but not deep in the wood. And she is the person who knows all of the old ways. She is the person who people go to when they're in trouble. She is the person with the welcoming kitchen and, you know, a cup of tea and a sit down, and people will come to her for advice on all of the womanly things. So, you know, children and love and what to do with life. And she will help them. And she might help them with special tea. She might give them things to help them sleep at night, or ideas to spark their creativity. And she does it all, and she nurtures her garden, and she keeps her hens. And that pretty much, I thought, she probably sews, summed me up. But I would say that it sums me up from around about the age of 24, as well as now. The person who, you know, all I wanted for my 24th birthday was a plant voucher, even though I didn't have a garden at that time. So that's it. I think it's a really interesting thing. And it's one of the reasons that I am on YouTube, because when my friend Georgie from Common Farm Flowers, who has an amazing YouTube channel, I've told this story before. I went to breakfast at her farm, her flower farm, down in Somerset, and she said to me, we've known each other for years and years on a social media kind of level, but this was the first time that we had met in person. And she said to me, you know, Jane, you should go on YouTube. And I thought, yeah, right, that's going to work. And then I went and looked at YouTube, and I was so sad at how all of the people my age seemed to be telling other women, you know, what they should wear to look younger, how they should exercise to look younger, what kind of makeup would make them look younger. And I thought, there needs to be more. And of course, now I have found more. Kate at the Homely House, absolutely fantastic. Belting Cottage, really good site. Unexpected Gypsy, wonderful filmmaker. There are now, you know, once you've started seeing them, there is a big, big crowd. So that's what I am saying today. All from that, I'm not going to be joining in the micro-influencer campaign for living the good hag life anytime soon. Come back when I'm 90. That's what I should have said. And I came back to the garden, and there's still flowers here. I thought that I might have lost all of the late flowers. And, you know, dahlias, I sort of expected some scented geraniums. But look here, I have a wonderful crop of sweet peas in the garden with really long stems. I don't think I've ever had that this late in the season. So this I have picked to go on my kitchen table and to welcome anybody in and have a chat, because obviously I'm the hen wife, though sadly I am a hen wife without hens, because the day before holiday, overnight, something came and ate all of our hens, which was really awful, awful. Though I am glad that it was before the house sitter was in charge, because that would be a horrible thing to wake up to if it was somebody else's hens. It was bad enough when they were mine. So I think I will be without hens all winter and then get some more in the spring. So there we are, hen wife without her hens. Until next week, bye bye.